Life in Uruguay is tranquilo, chill. The cost of living is high, but not outrageous. It's doable. Things that I do to save money. Go to the farmers markets, the feria, make a couple big meals a week so you don't have to eat out all the time. Don't own a car. Uruguayan food. Used to be, I felt a lot of the same things all over again. Empanadas, milanesas, hamburgers, pizza, and then do it all over again. Now, thank you, it's getting more vegan, more vegetarian options, sushi, a little bit more spicy. The food scene has gotten better. Uruguayan wine is delicious. It's bold. My family makes me fly back with Verde Virgin from Pisano, a white one that is like a little bit bubbly. Oh, they make me bring it every time. They won't accept me in the United States without it. Healthcare in Uruguay is accessible. Public school in Uruguay is an adjustment for the people who are going to be shocked by the half a day norm, but there are options, and there are great private school options, there are great public school options. Before I moved here, I wish I had known to stay on a budget more, because I moved here with a good nest egg, but it was gone quickly. Spent like $10,000 on a used car, things for a new baby, everything adds up quick. So stay on a budget, don't fly by the seat of your pants, save money, put things aside, because things happen, you know?
Thanks so much for coming. I'm super excited to bring somebody like yourself to interview, because you've been here for so long.
Yeah,
and you have a
11
pretty
years.
unique story. It's going to be really helpful for people.
So I'm originally from Boston, Massachusetts, in the United States. I lived there almost my whole life, like 20, 21 years. Then I moved out west, and that's where I picked up Spanish along the way. When I moved here, I was already fluent, so I'm really lucky in that regard. And now I've been in Uruguay after that for 11 years. Wow, time flies.
What brought you here originally?
So I was at a job working as a social worker in Boston, because I got back after my year in Honduras. I've always wanted to check out South America. I've never been to South America. My brother was dating an Argentinian woman at the time, I think, and I was like, oh, what about Argentina? Let's go to Argentina. And then Uruguay was like maybe, like always like a maybe. So came here on vacation, met my son's mother during a weekend. Yeah.
I had forgotten this.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. It was a, I mean,
I didn't realize that
like a little
that
fling.
was, wow.
Yeah. I was literally on vacation. 3 months later, got the phone call. I'm pregnant, and I was like, wow, amazing. Like, it's one of those moments in your life you'll never forget where you are. And she was really happy that I was positive, like right from the beginning. And she said she definitely, you know, definitely wanted to keep the pregnancy, and I respected that decision and was really happy and excited for the possibility. But at the same time, in that exact moment, I told her like, well, like, vamos a ver, let's see, like, I don't know what's gonna happen. I'm back in love with my ex, which was true. It was complicated. I had my life, my job, everything in Boston. And that same weekend, my ex cheated on me, and I was like, wow, this is a sign. I'm like, I'm done with Boston. I'm kind of sick of it. Like, I was back there for 4 years, which was amazing, because I didn't live there for a long time. I was gone from Boston for 10 years. So at the same time, I was like, maybe this is a calling, maybe this is a sign. And I just said, okay, I'm gonna move to Uruguay then. And we never talked about her moving to the United States. Have a good relationship with her still. My son is now 10 years old, going on 21, going on 16. Yeah, that's my story in a nutshell. It was a wild weekend that wound up with me moving here, and now I've been here 11 years. I've never gone back to the US to live, like, you know, I've only gone back for visits.
Thanks for sharing that. This
Yeah,
is amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I usually get it all out there within the first 5 seconds of meeting somebody anyway, so just throw those cards right on the table, you know. Uruguayans are very open people.
How old were you when all this happened?
I was, I was in like mid to mid 30s.
So somebody in their mid-30s, I'm never going to say to them that they should move to Uruguay if they don't have their job sorted out.
Yeah.
And ideally that they're earning abroad
I agree.
to be able to spend
completely.
the money here.
Right.
Right?
I didn't have that luxury.
And so how has that been?
Okay,
Because
well,
we want to be really realistic for people.
totally. Yeah. So job market here is different. It's tough. I felt like even for somebody who was fluent in Spanish when I moved here, my background was in social work. I think people kind of like looked at my CV when I moved here and they were kind of like, wow, you've done like a little bit of everything. Like used to be a photographer, taught for a year, then you were a social worker. And it's kind of like, I think Uruguayan's like a little bit more like stay in one path. You know what I mean? Like it's kind of like, this is what you end up doing. This is what you study. This is what you do. Maybe that's me. I was thinking that like, oh, my resume is not really going to transfer to this market. So I just wound up teaching English when I first got here, just out of like necessity. But I did move here with like a pretty good nest egg. So I was like, my intention was always not to like jump into work right away. I wanted to like take it easy for my son's first year of life. Yeah, his mom had maternity leave. She's an architect. So I did English teaching for out of necessity mostly, and then just ended up, continuing with it. I did private classes. I taught in private schools and private institutes. I taught English off and on for, I would say, like a good 7-8 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, a long time. Yeah, big chunk of my time here. And then I just got really, really burnt out. Then I switched to like customer service, customer support, a little bit of tech support,
Was that in English?
Yes, yeah.
Because there's a big market for that here, right?
Right. The tech industry in Uruguay has exploded. Tons of...
And most of the clients are from the US.
Yeah, or Europe, or yeah. Uruguay has a lot of advantages in those kind of like the tech industry. They have a high level of English. I think they have one of the highest in Latam. They have good workers, and companies can save a lot of money because they don't have to pay a US salary.
All right, so tell us about that.
Yeah, so salaries definitely are different. When I tell my friends in the United States, I'm like, oh, I make like between 1,000, 1,500 a month. They're like, whoa, Marcus used to make that in like a week, like nothing. Like that's nothing. How do you survive? So you put everything in a balance, right? I mean, I share my rent with my girlfriend, so you split the costs. I don't have a car, and just my last job was about $2,000, a little bit more than $2,000 a month, and that $2,000 a month was my best salary in my 11 years here. But when I tell that to people back home, they're like, "Whoa, it's a big, But then I tell them, everyone thinks every country in Latam is cheap. Uruguay is not cheap. No, it is now established as like, I think the most expensive in Latam, especially in relation to the average salaries, not even talking about my salary, which I tell to local Uruguayans and they're like, oh, you're rich.
It's a reasonable salary.
Right, that's a very good salary, 2,000 something a month,
Yeah.
But there are people in that tech world who can make a lot more, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 a month, and do very, very well and live very, very comfortably with a car and kids, especially, both.
But they're techies. They're not working in the service part.
Right. They're more,
right?
Yeah.
That's the difference.
They're more like project managers, more higher up the food chain than I was. And I had to get my foot in the door. I had to get my feet wet, kind of like in that industry. So I did for a while, felt like very disconnected. How do I get experience?
And have you been able to work constantly, or has it been difficult to find jobs sometimes?
I've lost my job a bunch of times. The first time I got laid off from the job at Alianza when I was an Education USA advisor. First time in my life I ever got the automatic severance. When you're a full Uruguayan employee, you get it automatically. They laid me off and they were like, sign here. And then they showed me this piece of paper and they were like, oh, and you're going to get this amount of money. And I was like, I'm getting money for getting fired? Like, what is this? And it was automatic. And then I realized it was like a law here. And Uruguay, this country really respects and treats you have a lot of rights as an employee. And you have lots of rights when you're like living in an apartment. You can't just like kick somebody out. It's the same like with jobs, like they have a lot of, safety nets.
But in the tech industry, they're getting around some of those rights, right?
Yes. So my last job, I was what's called scarce.
So you had to create your own company.
Yes, you have to create your own company. It's a lot of paperwork.
I was surprised about that. I thought that was more for people that had employees. That when you said that, I was surprised. These companies,
I think, use it as a loophole. They know.
Oh, so there's even they're not paying benefits then in that kind of case?
They gave me health insurance and all that, but I don't get any of the other stuff. I don't get unemployment when I get laid off. I don't get severance or anything.
Hi there. If you're thinking, I need to check more out about Uruguay, then let me invite you to Uruguay.com. I've been living here for 25 years and I write practically all of the articles, zero AI. So see you on Uruguay.com. In your 11 years, you've lived in a bunch of neighborhoods in Montevideo, and we're going to put on a screen a link to the different neighborhoods and the different vibes and stuff. But I'd love your take, you know, like which neighborhoods you've lived in, what you thought about each of them.
The barrios de Montevideo. Barrio is neighborhood. We're going to do a little Spanish lessons here, guys. So take notes. I started out, my son was born in Parque Rolo, by the park, like a block from the park. Absolutely love that neighborhood. I still feel like 11 years later that Parque Rolo is kind of my favorite neighborhood, except for the pelusas, this pollen that flies around everywhere, which is a...
Oh, from the trees.
Yes.
Yeah, twice a year.
It's toxic. It's really, and I have allergies. So I've lived in Parque Rolo. Then I moved to Buceo, very short time there. Then I lived in the old city where we are now, Ciudad Vieja. Then I moved back to kind of Parque Rolo, but more on the Cordon side. Or as my friends like to tell me, in el medio de la joda, which means in the middle of all the fun, all the shit, all the parties. You have tons of restaurants in Cordon, tons of nightlife. But our apartment was in the back of the building, so it was like a cave. We felt like we couldn't hear the street. Like everybody always asked us like, oh, there's tons of parties all over. Isn't it loud? But we were in the back, but we also needed to move because that cave just didn't get a lot of light. So now we're in Pocitos, beautiful apartment, 2-bedroom, balcony, little space to hang the clothes on the side with a huge kitchen. I host Thanksgiving in my kitchen. But yeah, all of those neighborhoods, I would say Parque Rolo is my favorite. Pocitos, close second actually. I'm surprised.
Yeah.
My girlfriend used to give me shit for being cheto. I called her the anti-cheto. Cheto means like preppy and nice and fancy.
That's a great translation.
Yeah.
Cheto.
Cheto.
I love that. Preppy.
Yeah. But now we've lived in Pocitos for a little over a year and I love it. I love being so close to the beach. It's a little quieter, I'm just...
Because the beach is better for swimming in Pocitos than Parque Rolo's
Yes,
beach,
that
right?
is a huge difference. Yeah. Playa Ramirez and Parque Rolo, Cordon is not... It's nice, but you have to go really deep to get...
Yeah, it's very shallow
very
for a long
shallow.
time.
Yeah. But there are still things we miss about Parque Rolo and Cordon, like...
yeah, and you said it's like party city, but we're talking about Uruguay, right?
Right.
So everything is...
dialed down a little bit. But it is. I mean, on the weekends, and that was an adjustment for me coming here. I mean, I like to go out, I like to party, but it was like, wow. It was like, they don't leave their house till 11 o'clock or midnight, and then they stay out sometimes till 6, like till sunrise. And I was like, wow. I was like, I thought I could hang, but these guys take it to another level. So I would say for expats, the neighborhoods that I always recommend are like Punta Caretas, and Parque Rolo, Cordon. I say go a little outside of your maybe comfort zone. Check like Palermo, check Ciudad Vieja. Ciudad Vieja, when I moved here 11 years ago, it had this stigma of being like dangerous. I remember that being
it's had the stigma forever.
I know, like being in the guidebooks, but it used to be a lot darker and they didn't have the peatonal, the walking streets like all lit up and So I think it had the stigma for a reason, but I think that's kind of gone away. When I lived here, I never... But it's different being a man than it is for a woman also.
No, I live here as a woman, no problem.
Right.
It looks gritty.
Yeah. My buddy called it ghetto chic. There's pluses and minuses to every neighborhood, but I would never want to live like so far away, like in Carrasco or something like that. I think that's a little too highbrow for me. So, not judging anybody from Carrasco, by the way. You guys are cool.
Could we get an idea of your typical day or your typical week?
Typical day, for me, being a part-time dad, depends if I'm with my son. Yesterday happened to be my night with my son, so pick him up at school, take him out for a snack. The snack time in Uruguay is a crucial thing. You need to have your merienda because they don't eat dinner until 10 or like sometimes later at night.
Even with kids?
Even with kids, yes. I don't. We like to eat at my house by 8 or 9, and that's pushing it. That's like getting late, Like last night we didn't get home till 9. Dinner was already ready to go, but... So, typical day, typical week. Depends on if I'm with my son. But yesterday picked up my son at school, walked around, went and met my girlfriend when she got off work, walked the Rambla all the way home, made dinner, watched a movie, chilled. Today, dropped him off at school, came here, or usually getting back online working. My last job was nights a lot, so that was a big adjustment. I had to work like noon to 8 or 1 to 9 because it was all sports streaming. So like when games are online, I'd be online. But a typical week, I go to the feria at least once to get, the feria is your farmer's market, and it's crucial to get fresh fruits and vegetables. It's also like a great sense of community. But I try to do like one run to the grocery store throughout the week, one run to the farmer's market, get everything I need. At least make like one big batch of food so like we have stuff. Uruguayans are very like fly by the seat of their pants. Like, oh, what are we having for dinner tonight? Oh, it's already 7:30, 8 o'clock at night? Me there. I don't have any idea what we're having for dinner. Let me go to the grocery store at 9:30 and finally get something. It's true though, right?
It's so true. And also, you'll see people, and I've done it myself because I've become quite, like acclimatized, let's say. And it's nothing to go 2 or 3 times a day to your little corner store, and people buy in their corner store as well.
Yeah, it's very different, right? It was a big adjustment. But a typical day for me is usually, working a couple times a week. I'm usually playing sports. I play every sport under the sun, like practically, but the sports that I moved here and I thought, okay, I'm not going to think about golf again, not going to think about baseball, softball again. And now those sports are back in my life. I'll explain that later. But the big ones when I first moved here was I had one friend in Boston, whose name is Alex Dedna. Shout out to Alex. She was like, Marcus, you're moving to Uruguay? You're going to have a kid there? Amazing. Like, you got to connect with these expats. They have a sports group. It was founded by British guys. And I was like, what? Cool. So, especially when I split up with my son's mother, I was like, felt like very 1 foot back in the States. I was like, what am I doing here? I was like freaking out in a way, like, it was tough. It was a tough adjustment, I split up with her. I realized we probably weren't meant to be together. And to land in a group where like they get together a couple nights a week, I could speak my own language. A lot of them have kids like me, or maybe going through the same kind of struggles of adjusting to a work market, adjusting to life here, because a lot of them either their job sent them here or their missus is from here. But now their kids are growing up here, so it's been amazing. Like my best friends are Irish, British, German. We've had so many different nationalities in this group over the years. It's awesome. Now we have a huge Indian group playing with us. We're brothers because we kicked the British out of Boston, and the Indians also kicked the British out of there. So, going back to my other point. The furthest sports from my mind when I moved here was like softball, baseball, and golf. And the first thing I did, my father's first trip to Uruguay, I was like, Dad, you got to bring me my golf clubs. And he's like, why? And I was like, oh, there's this great course, even though it's private. It used to be free on Mondays, the one in Punta Carretas. Now they charge you like 1,500 pesos, 1,500 pesos, which in dollars, like what, 35, 40 bucks, somewhere in there. Mm-hmm. Which for unlimited golf is great. But so now every once in a while I play golf. And then the other one that's been huge is over the last 5 or 6 years, huge Venezuelan, Dominican, and Cuban population. So now there is...
Huge again by Uruguayan standards.
Well, yeah, but it's changed the dynamic here a lot, I feel like. It's given like that little salsita and a little bit more spiciness to the food, and even just...
Totally.
Yeah, like Uruguayans needed a little like... something different,
A little spice.
I'll go back to the food thing later, but so now I've been playing in a fast pitch softball league for the past like 5 or 6 years, and it is huge, like 20 teams sometimes. We have 2 fields in Parque Rivera. We have another one in Colón, and now there's another one that just opened in Cerro, and another one in Paso de la Reina. Yeah, like it's enormous. Like
and
A and B.
This is immigrants and locals.
There's some Uruguayans in the league, but they, either, I don't know how, like they either picked it up by practicing with us or, finding a team that needs players and learning.
That's hysterical.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll put your contact details or some contact details in the description,
yeah,
right? So people can join you.
I have a WhatsApp group for soccer. That expat soccer group plays Monday, Wednesday, Friday nights, 8 o'clock, Sunday mornings. Then I have a beach volleyball co-ed group. We get together at Pocitos, basketball, either 3-on-3 or 5-on-5, all co-ed, all abilities welcome. So
amazing.
Yeah, it's been a game changer. Having like a sense of community and
So your son is in primary school here.
Yes, Lucio. He's 11 years old.
And he goes to public school.
He does.
Yeah. Was that out of choice?
Yeah, I think so. I think maybe his mom and I realized that the budgeting was an issue, but we were very lucky. He got into one of like the most well-regarded of the public schools. Uruguayan schools, a huge change for me and a huge learning curve was learning that most Uruguayans either go to in the morning or the afternoon, like 8 to noon, and then that's it for the rest of their day, no more school, like huge adjustment, or you go 1 to 5. So that was a huge adjustment for me, and I was like, how do these people manage their week with their kids only going 4 hours a day? Like, and to answer that question, they piecemeal it together. Grandma's with them this day, goes to the club this day, does an art workshop this day, something like that, which my son still does, but he does it after a full day of school. So the school that my son goes to is 7 hours. It's called an extended day. He has workshops all morning at that school. So like he does Portuguese, he does English, he does dance, he does like gymnastics or gym class, like all kinds of different stuff. And then in the afternoon, he has the 4 hours with his main teacher, But also very different at that school. He eats lunch in the school. They give him lunch. They have a cafeteria, no cost to the families, So yeah, it's great. Yeah, it's
but
been
it
great.
is unusual to have extended schools like that.
Yeah.
In more wealthy areas.
True.
And
true.
so it's not something that most foreigners are going to be able to bank on when they come here with kids,
Right, right.
We've actually got an article that we've written about this. I remember interviewing you for it regarding education in Uruguay. So we'll put the link there so you can find out a bit more about the options that there are. Obviously, your life has been massive, like the trajectory of your life changed.
Yeah, totally.
So I wanted to ask you, how does that look regarding, for example, citizenship, being able to travel here, like projecting a life outside of Uruguay?
Right.
Jumping in again, are you a paper person? If so, you are going to love the Uruguay guidebooks. There's one to Montevideo, the other one to Uruguay. They work as a set, and you can buy them on Amazon where they're bestsellers, or support your local bookshop by ordering them there.
Don't believe the hype, okay? If you're gonna have a kid in another country, it does not matter if they are born in Uruguay, okay? They can still be a US citizen, they can still get a social security card, they can still get a passport, because that was the first thing that everyone said to me back in the US. Even like some of my own, like I remember some of my own family members, and I was like, that's not the case. And so it was very easy. My son was born here. It's called the birth of a foreign national or something to that effect. I went to the US Embassy, turned in his birth certificate, turned in, my documentation, his mom's documentation, and within a month, I had his social security card, I had his U.S. passport, and he's now a dual citizen. Makes it a lot easier when we travel the United States. The biggest thing for us is like, it's been, in my 11 years, it's been hard to like save up for a vacation because every time I'm saving up, it's to go back and visit my family. But I am very lucky. My parents got to visit Uruguay 4 times. We've had visits from friends and family and stuff like that. But every time I'm saving up, it's to go back there. It's so weird that I landed here because now I have like a huge list of why Montevideo and Boston are like very similar. For me, Argentinians and Porteños especially is like New Yorkers, and Montevideo is very like Boston. Boston, my city, and Montevideo have a lot in common. Like they're both about 1 million, 2 million people with the suburbs. They're both like rivals with the neighboring city. Like we're rivals with New York and everything. And New York is like this crazy other world. And I feel like Buenos Aires is almost like that, like this 24-hour, like much more metropolitan, much more options, 24/7, club, whatever, nightlife and all that. Boston has that, but on a much smaller scale. Also like 4 very defined seasons, big adjustment, Montevideo and Uruguay. It does get cold. The winter hits hard here. The houses and apartments, I don't think they're not insulated as well, So people always call me like a baby. They're like, dude, you're from Boston. Like, how do you not adjust to the winter here? And I'm like, yeah, like this winter, was very cold, very windy, very humid, So yeah, even though we don't have snow, it still gets cold.
Yeah, but it's like humidity. Working in all of these different places, you've got to experience a bunch of different healthcare institutions.
True.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, the local healthcare that is free to all if you need it. As I said, it did kind of save me in the pandemic. I wound up without a job and without a health insurance, and I needed like my fourth vaccine, like before it was supposed to be available to my age bracket. But I sent them a letter and I said, hey, I'm asthmatic. I feel like I'm a high risk. So I got my fourth shot. I got like all my asthma inhalers. I got appointments when I needed to and didn't have any major issues. There is a stark difference when you go to a doctor's office from the public health here, from when I just got off MAP, which is like the top of the health insurance. You really feel like you're in like Europe or the United States with MAP. It's like just this everything spotless, everything
Beautiful
works.
gardens in the
They have like a
buildings.
cafe in the one over there on by Parque Valle, so. And COSEM, which I think you told me you have. My son has COSEM.
It's like a mid-level.
Yeah, yeah. But I would say COSEM has a very high quality of service, and I've been very pleased and very, I'm really lucky. I might get sick once or twice a year with just a cold, but I feel like I'm pretty healthy. No major injuries or surgeries or stuff like that. I think if you have to have things that are major, or if you're moving here with like a pre-existing health condition, that could be tough. It's amazing to know that you have the national healthcare, the free healthcare if you need it, as a safety net.
Yeah. What about for your son? How does he get his healthcare?
He gets his healthcare either through my job or through his mother's job.
Okay, and so then it's free for minors.
Right. If you want the extra service, like what is it, like the 24, like the ambulance service and stuff, then you might pay. And then you pay out of pocket so that if there's like an emergency visit.
Yeah, but that's like $20 a month.
Yeah, it's very, very reasonable.
So you learn Spanish in Central America and in the US.
In Arizona, yeah.
Yeah, so how does the Spanish here compare?
Okay, so very different. The sentence that I always say to people and that I taught to my son is like in neutral Spanish, you would say, yo hablo con ella en la calle. That would be neutral Spanish. That means I talk to her in the street. Whereas you move down here in that same sentence, remember, yo hablo con ella en la calle becomes yo hablo con ella en la calle. That's the exact same sentence in Spanish, but it's Rio Platense Spanish. And I think you're going to show the map of the Rio de la Plata. It's only really in Buenos Aires, Argentina, Uruguay, and maybe the northern part of Argentina has a different accent.
Yeah,
but it's an adjustment. But that being said, take that with a caveat. Don't believe the hype in that, like, if you've studied neutral Spanish or you can feel like you can talk to Mexicans or Central Americans or Puerto Ricans or whatever, that you're going to move here and you're going to be totally lost. Was not the case with me. There is a learning curve, obviously. The slang, the expressions, humor is always really hard to understand. I mean, I remember trying to learn jokes and I literally had to get them to like tell me why the joke is funny, which is ruining the joke, but you have to do that in another language. You have to, So yes, for a little while, the learning curve was tough. And I felt like I was like, but with my son's mother, with the first people I met here, speaking Spanish, as long as I was like, saying what I needed to say, I felt like I could understand it. And there were times even at some of my jobs where you have to switch to Spanish because, I don't know, this is how you're going to get your health insurance. You have to go to this office and get your ID. You have to do this, and you're not going to walk around with a translator, 24/7. So you need to kind of learn it. But move here with something, study as much as you can before you move here. And now you have so many options. You have YouTube, you have apps, you have, But maybe if you can get an Argentinian or Uruguayan teacher before you move here or before you visit, it's that double L becomes sh. It reminds me of Italian. It's a little bit of more like a singy-songy kind of dance, that the Uruguayans are doing.
So what has surprised you for good about living in Uruguay?
Uruguay is, I feel like, very warm. I feel like the people are very warm and inviting. And I think you need to move here with an open mind and accept that, rather than thinking everything needs to be the way I used to live my life. Adapt, adjust to local cultures, rather than saying everything is weird and different. Adjust. You're in a new country. You're living here, right? Very warm and inviting. Very tranquilo. Very chill. They have a different vibe. until they drive cars and until they play football or sports. Then they're pushing you out of the way. They're giving you a little bit of the garacharua, the fighting spirit. But I would say the good, just the culture. My parents came here 4 times. They're now in their 80s. They loved it every single time. Museums, every steak my dad ate, every single one. Marcus, I thought last year's steak was the best. This one takes the cake, He's just like amazing, So the red meat, the wine, the culture, even like live music, candombe. You have the drumming in the streets, paying respects to the African roots and heritage is amazing. The people, just they're great. I love my Uruguayos. I'm proud to call myself Gringo Guacho.
Okay,
Did I answer it fully?
I loved it.
Okay.
But conversely, no country is perfect, right?
Right.
So tell me about
Oh,
some of the negatives.
Oh, please, let's go. Sidewalks. What do you do in Uruguay with your sidewalks, okay? Get rid of the tiles and just concrete that stuff. Because everybody knows you got the tiles that are missing, you trip. You cannot walk comfortably on the sidewalk in this city without looking down. For that reason, for the tiles, and also for the dog poop that nobody picks up. This sounds specific, but you'll notice it when you visit. The bad, I would say, is that I already did mention the aggressive drivers. There's not enough stop signs. People California roll through all the stop signs. I feel like all stop signs and yields are like optional. And this was even like 11 years ago, pushing a baby carriage around the city. Like people were not stopping for me, and I'm like, what are you doing? But now I get it. Like it's not part of their culture. The crosswalk. They have like very few what they call zebras or crosswalks in Montevideo. So I still find myself like being like this to people who are driving, and they're gonna like hit me and my son with their car, and I'm like, why don't you stop? You have a stop sign, So the bad, I would say, can be the city, can be a little bit dirty, grimy at times. You see trash thrown out the dumpsters, but it's also like a way that everything kind of gets used and recycled in some way, I don't know if I really have other bad stuff. The cost of living is definitely high, but you make it work.
Yeah. You've already mentioned there are lots of things to do that don't cost that much money, right?
Right, so. There are lots of free events. Just last weekend I went to like a free street party at a buddy's restaurant. Shout out to Montevideo Sur. You know Joaquin too.
I do.
You too. I went to a great street party with live music out in the street, and they shut down a couple of streets. And then I went to the Oktoberfest at Espacio Arte Contemporáneo, the Contemporary Art Museum, which used to be an old prison. Amazing venue. And I always wanted to go to a party there. I had never been to a party in that courtyard. It is so cool. That was also free. I thought they were going to like charge an entrance, but they didn't, because it's like lined with food trucks, and they know everybody's going to drink, and there was live music.
So if you're thinking now, is Uruguay a good fit for me? Is it a good fit for me and my family? Go to Uruguay and hit consultation. There you'll have an opportunity to have a real, unvarnished conversation and feedback about your particular situation. It'd be amazing to work with you. What would be the piece of advice that you'd give to somebody thinking about moving to Uruguay?
Let's see. I would say definitely move here already having a job, a remote job, or a job that you've established before you move here. Give yourselves options in that department. Get on LinkedIn, look at Uruguayan companies if you don't have one. Getting a job here, I prefer when I've had a job where they have an office in Uruguay. I really like that connection. So that can be cool. But the other thing is just moving here with an open mind, like I already talked about, being open to things, not, moving here. I caught myself, and I can be very negative at times. I criticize everything, or I compare everything to the United States sometimes. Oh, this isn't as good, I don't have the options, or why is this so pricey, and blah, blah, blah. So moving here with an open mind, letting things kind of like wash over you, and adapting, finding a job. Maybe you don't need a car. I've lived without a car for 8-9 years. Doesn't have to be this thing that you have to have. Don't get me wrong, it makes things easier. But I think the bus system here is very good. You can get around. You don't always need to have,
You can hire a car on a weekend.
Right. Yeah, you can rent cars very, very easily and very economically every once in a while if you want to get out of the city, which is great.
Yeah.
But I would say like adapting, moving here with an open mind.
Thanks so much. This has been hysterical. I've really enjoyed it.
It's been fun.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take two. Okay.